Welcome to another episode of the Chronic Comeback podcast. I'm your host, Phil Hadfield, and today we've got a special guest on the show, Amanda Campbell. Before we kind of get into the podcast, I'd just like to introduce Amanda and kind of how I came across her story. So Amanda, age 24, was diagnosed with MS, and in 2009, she actually became completely paralysed on her left side. Doctors told her that she wasn't likely to walk again, but rather than accept this bleak diagnosis, Amanda refused to believe that this was the truth. And through belief, grit and determination, she discovered a diet and a plan that helped her on a comeback journey, so that not only she was walking again, she could exercise and she could live a normal life. She's since gone on to launch a number of successful businesses, including Bend Like Bamboo, which we'll get into, aimed at helping others transform their health and make their own comebacks. Added to this, she's a motivational speaker and a leading expert on resilience. And so she couldn't be a more perfect guest for this podcast. So welcome to the show. And thank you for coming on.
Thank you. Oh, what a lovely introduction. Thanks, Phil. And I love your podcast and I love the concept. So thanks for having me.
No worries. So it's early morning here, so I've got a coffee. So I should be full of energy.
Love it.
So, okay, just going back to, I mentioned there, age 24, you were diagnosed with MS. Before that point, how was life for you I guess just in all perspectives, but from a health perspective, how was life going for you? And then could you talk me through the period of actually when you actually got diagnosed and what that was like for you?
Yeah, for sure. So when I was young, I was always a motivated, happy, driven young girl. I'm a twin sister. Nicole is the yang to my yin, in that she's an eyebrow tattooist. So she's the yang, the external, and she specializes she's a great makeup artist, amazing tattoo artist. And I focus on well-being and inner work. So I'm the yin, she's the yang. But yeah, look, when we went to wonderful schools, we were healthy, we participated in all the sports. We were lucky to attend schools that not only offered academics, but also sports and music. So we actually found ourselves in the music school most of the time. I was playing flute, violin, piano, and got really into singing and dancing. And Nicole and I love singing and dancing so much that when we finished school, we went on a path. We were like, oh, what do I want to do with my life? And I was like, oh, law, marketing. I mean, in the family, we have surgeons and lawyers, but Nicole and I always we wanted to be singers and dancers. So can you imagine mum and dad at the dinner table? It's like,
I can imagine you guys being a bit of a nightmare.
Yeah, we were a little bit. But we always followed our dreams. And so I went to university for a year. Nicole was unwell. So Nicole was diagnosed with Crohn's disease when we were 11 years old. She had one of the worst cases seen, and she was in and out of hospital, basically missed most of school. But she finished year 10, 11, 12, kicked goals. It was great. We went to a smaller school just so it was easier for her to come back in. And then we went off to university, and I specialized... we both did arts, and then I was going to transfer into law because I didn't get a high enough TER. But I didn't want to do that in the end anyway. And then Nicole got better, and we thought life's too short. So we decided to defer university, and we went and pursued our dreams to sing and dance full time. So we studied musical theatre and dance at Dance Factory, which is a famous dance school in Melbourne. And it was the year that there was a girl there, her name was Rachel, and she was murdered actually that year in our group. So it's actually quite a famous story, but that's a whole different story. So we studied that for a couple of years, and then naturally started to sing and write our own music, and we worked with producers and wrote our own albums. It was the best. We loved it. We were living our dream. But of course, we had to pay the bills. So Nicole went on, became a beautician and just really loved helping her clients, and she did makeup artistry. And then I fell into the fashion industry, which was just by accident. And I found something I really loved. And so we were good. Nicole was healthier. She went on a liver cleansing diet, and she had been on many medications for her Crohn's disease. And she actually got so sick, she flatlined and died twice. Yeah, I haven't told you this yet. And
At what age was that?
it was about, so she was diagnosed at 11. That would have been about age 13. Wow. And it was really hard. And so Dad found a forward treatment in England. I think it was actually in London. I think it was in London. And they treated her with chemotherapy and antibiotics for tuberculosis, right? And then so they took her off all the other drugs that, you know, the steroids and all, like she was on so many medications that were giving her rheumatoid arthritis. And so anyway, that sorted her out. She went into a massive reset. She watched all of the Anthony Robbins motivational tapes back then. Yeah. And because we're 40 now, so we're showing our age. And she reset her mind, body, and life. Then I thought it was my turn to get sick. No, but it's kind of like what happened. So but we were living our dream and we were singing and dancing full time, writing our own music, working on this, you know. And then it was around the age of 19 that one of the jobs I had was, we both worked in nightclubs as well behind the bar when we were 19. And I first experienced pins and needles like down my face. I remember I was running late and I was behind the bar putting mascara on. And I was like, oh, I can't feel that. And then I was talking to my boss and then this drool was coming out of my mouth. And I was like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. Like what? But I couldn't feel the left-hand side of my face. So that turned into a visit to my GP. He said, oh, I really think you should have an MRI. It could be something quite serious, like a brain tumor. And I was like, oh my God. I remember getting myself to hospital and I couldn't drive my manual car very well with my left hand. And so long story short, they found one lesion on my brain. So they didn't really know what it was. Like when you find one spot on your brain, it could be anything. And they can't diagnose you with multiple sclerosis, which means multiple lesions in your brain. So true to my nature, I just got on with my life. I fell into the fashion industry then, a career I really enjoyed. I got to work behind the scenes with amazing designers. I became a personal assistant, which were skills I still use to this day in my very own business. So it was a really cool thing to learn and do. And I was making really good money. I was in my 20s. And it was around the age of 24 that the symptoms came back, but a little bit worse. So pins and needles turned into weakness on the left-hand side of my body. And I was limping and it was weird. So I was like, okay, I need to go back. And I had another MRI, but this time I found a neurologist, a specialist, who then assessed me. And he looked at my results. And I remember going to this appointment. I was 24 and he said, looked at my results, looked at me and he said, Amanda, I'm so sorry. We've now found multiple lesions on your brain and one on your spine. So we can confidently diagnose you with multiple sclerosis. And I just remember like everything just stopped in time and froze in time. And I looked at him and I bawled my eyes out. And the first thing that I thought of was, can I have a family? And I didn't even realize this was important to me. I mean, I was so young, but that was the first thing I thought of. And it was from that moment on, looking back now, I started to focus on what I didn't want and what I was scared of that might happen. That's what happens when we're stressed. We tend to focus on worst case scenarios because that can be the safest way. So I focused on what I didn't want and what I was scared of, that I might end up disabled, bedridden, or worse. So what did I do? I was in my early 20s. I went out later. I worked harder. I disconnected from my emotions. I was in denial and I wasn't looking after myself. And I started to believe that I may not be okay. And what you believe is what matters. And so I started to, it was just an idea at first. Oh my God, what if I'm not okay? I've got a disease. Oh my God, I did some research and it's a degenerative disease. And some people end up really disabled. Some people don't, but some people do. So I started to believe, wow, what if this is going to be my life? And so 5 years later, my worst fears were realized at age 29, living and believing and perceiving in this way. I became completely paralyzed on the left-hand side of my body. It was like a stroke. Yeah.
And at that time, did you feel like, was there like, how did you, because you had that, you'd already had that really dark time when you were 24, you'd kind of ignored it. Was that happening at 29? Was that because it can go one or two ways, right? Then you can go further into the dark, or that can be the thing that, you know, reignites the fuel. Like, and which way was that for you?
Yeah, that was absolutely rock bottom when I became paralyzed. It was absolutely the fuel in the end, but first it had to be rock bottom. So this is how the rock bottom went. I went into hospital. I had 3 days of steroids to reduce the inflammation. That is the lesions up here on the right, which is the motor skill area of my brain, and it got the whole left side, just one little lesion. And so I had 3 days of steroids, but I couldn't move. So they decided to extend the 3 days to 5 days of steroids, but I wasn't responding to treatment. So I was in a wonderful hospital in Richmond, and they have a rehab center. So they transferred me to rehabilitation, a place I would live for 2 months. But first I sat in front of another doctor who then explained that this was now a waiting game. I wasn't responding to treatment and I may never walk again. That was the hardest, darkest time of my life, and really hard to hear because I was 29, an absolute go-getter, always trying to be successful, always trying to push forward, always trying to squeeze everything out of life. What can I do next? So I felt so robbed. I was like, I'm only 29. I haven't done half the things, a quarter of the things that I wanted to do. And they said, my arm was twisted. It looked like a stroke, and you can't. So washing and feeding myself became the most difficult tasks of my day in 10 quick, slow, actually, not quick, 10 slow, grueling days of paralysis. And so it was many weeks of dealing with that. But then, MS is about the brain, and now as a practitioner, I've studied and I look at this from the practitioner and the patient's point of view, and the brain is all about in control and how control center and how control you feel or how out of control you feel. And I know now looking back that even though I was a go-getter and always have been and still am, but I didn't believe in myself enough as a child. And so I often felt out of control, and I always pushed to make things happen rather than coming from a place of I am and expressing that. It was always I'm not enough and I need to try more. So it's like that experience of being paralyzed put me on my ass, and I had to sit in 4 white walls and just be there. And it was the best thing that ever happened to me, because I learned how to be quiet in my mind, and I just had to sit still. And then that's how I discovered what I was made of. And so they said I might never walk again. And there were many weeks of no change. But it's as if you would light a candle in a well-lit room. You don't notice the light. It's only when everything becomes dark, that's a time when you find your light and what you're truly capable of. And so there was no change, and I was crying behind black sunglasses, just going, wow, this is my life. What am I going to do? And I was in pain. It hurt. I couldn't get into the shower and just wash myself without help. I needed help eating, changing. I mean, there were beautiful moments though. Like my twins stepped in and looked after me and slept next to me in the single hospital bed most nights. My girlfriends came whenever they could. I have beautiful friends. I went through the ending of a relationship at that time, and that was hard. But I had great support with family and friends. And there was one day when everything changed. And it was a day when all the girls came down and they put me in my wheelchair and they wheeled me across the road and took me out to a pub for dinner. And we just laughed and forgot about the 24/7 hell that was my reality. Just for a few hours, it was different. And just sitting at a table upright, like still paralyzed, but sitting there in my wheelchair and just being in the moment, laughing with my friends, like the old days, brought so much joy into my body. It was as if I was receiving joy for the first time. And I think it's because of the power of polarity, because I was going through such a difficult time. Just those simple things, which is all you want when you lose so much. You just want the simple things back. And it just brought so much joy. I could feel joy entering my cells. And then what I know now is that when we're stressed, we tend to go into survival mode. And when that on state, and my whole life I was probably on, trying to be successful, trying to achieve, and not really feeling enough. But in that moment where I felt joy, it's like I let go of that survival and I just dropped out of my head into my heart. And then my body went, oh, we don't need to keep her alive. We don't need to prioritize survival mode. We can now prioritize growth and repair instead. And when we're more present in the moment, we are not only in our most creative state, but we we fire the signal. We change what signals we fire, and we're either in growth and repair or survival and stress. So you want to promote growth and repair as much as possible. And I think in that moment where I felt intense joy, something healed in my body, and I came back to my room and my toe moved on my paralyzed foot for the first time.
Wow.
And it was in that moment I found hope. And as a result, I started to focus my energy differently. I started to focus on what I wanted instead of what I didn't want. Because when you don't know whether you're going to walk again, it's too risky putting yourself out there going, because just if it doesn't happen, it's too disappointing and too scary. And it's a really dark time. But when my toe moved, I was like, okay, cool. I'm going to double down on this now. Now I can see it's possible. And I felt joy and I felt hope. And I started to use my energy better, and I channeled it better. So I was first in at physio, last to leave, woman on a mission, had a really hot physio too, by the way. So that kind of helps.
That helps.
He was really cute. He's like, constantly like adjusting my pelvis, and I'm just sitting there. Sometimes my girlfriend's walking going, dude, no wonder you're walking again. Look, and I'm like, I know. But before we get to that bit, I was just I was first in at physio, lastly worked my ass off, and then I take a very balanced approach. So I love Eastern and Western medicine. I'm so grateful for the hospital. I think that there's a time for Western medicine, but I think that there's also aspects of our minds and bodies that Western medicine cannot access, which Eastern medicine does for me and for many people. And so I was doing a combination of kinesiology every few days with a family friend that would come in and treat me. And then after those appointments, I would go into my physio. I was doing physio 3 times a day, 5 times a week. And I would go to my physio appointment and they would say, whoa, what have you done? You're 20% better today. And that was always after a kinesiology session, waking my muscles up. Because your muscles are connected to your brain via the nervous system, and using Chinese medicine acupuncture principles, you can wake your muscles up and the pathways of firing faster. And so I didn't know this was happening at the time, but I walked and ran within 6 weeks. That's my dog. Sorry, he's on the floor snoring. Henry, my pug, who I got when I came home from hospital, and he's turning 11 actually in a few weeks. So there you go. It was like 11 years ago. So so my mindset shift was pivotal. So when I started to believe that I could be well again, I started to visualize it. I could actually see it happening. I started to believe it could be possible. My results were faster, because I really think that what we believe is what matters. We all have goals, right? But just having a goal is not enough to make it happen. And that is because what you believe is what matters. And for many of us, our goals do not align with what we believe can be possible for us. And we don't believe in ourselves. So all my work at Bend Like Bamboo is about using flexibility to transform that inner conflict so that your goals align with what you believe about yourself and what you believe can be possible. But all of this is very subconscious. And that's why I love kinesiology, because it gets into the subconscious part of the brain and helps you to identify what you're believing or what you're not believing, and whether you need to change your mind about old stories that we create that might be valid for the moment of being aged 5 and being bullied, or I don't know, whatever it is in the past, right? And then we don't change our minds about our stories, and our pathways that we're firing are related to what we're believing. You know?
So there's a few things you've said there which I think is really interesting, and I think the first thing is, so I thought it was really interesting that when you were wheeled out in your wheelchair to the pub with your friends, you chose to see that as a really positive thing, and that for me just highlights the importance of perspective, because you could be there, and I've actually been there myself when I've been in a situation and I've got a lot of symptoms. I'm probably not drinking, and I'm for me, I'm saying, oh, poor me, why is this happening to me, and the victim side of things. And I don't like to say that word because I know it's quite it's maybe an antagonistic kind of word for some people, because the word victim, but it is that victim mentality, and you're like, why can't I have what they have? And
I felt that. I was feeling those times, like it's happening to me, not for me.
Yeah, but at that, and it sounds like you had a build up throughout your 20s of those feelings, but then at that point, you chose to look at it as a point of, no, this is actually giving me joy. This is giving me happiness. and that was the kind of turning point for you. Which do
It
you
was really
feel like
beautiful.
perspective for you is key? Is that like really important for someone in
And
that position?
definitely, but it's like I didn't think about it. It just came over me. It was just,
Mm,
I think I was so present in the moment because it meant so much to me just having those moments back. That something about that moment took me back into the present moment where I wasn't over analyzing the past or the future. I was just in the present moment with my friends, laughing, like laughing so hard. And it just did something. It just
mm,
changed like the energy and therefore my perspective, I guess. And I think we have to be feeling good to change our perspectives. And that's what my whole message is about, is you've got to feel good in your mind and body and in your life to be flexible, to be able to make these changes that help us to overcome adversity. No matter what it is that we're going through in our lives, I really believe that it's getting us, we have to go through those things, not around them, don't avoid them, go through them with courage. Walk a path unpaved, be solo, go through it, because who you become going through these moments to helps you discover who you're made of. It helps you to become stronger, to get out of your comfort zone even more.
mm.
And it just changes you as a person. Whereas we avoid it. Oh my God, I don't want to go through that. I don't want, but just go through it. As soon as you know that something scares you, go, cool, I'm gonna go through that. And it's never as hard as you think.
Mm. And you said something else as well, which I really wanted to write down. It was the candle metaphor, and I was like, I'm going to steal that. And I just thought that was, it's only at your darkest times when you realise what you're actually made of.
You
And
find
again,
your light. Yeah.
yeah, and for me that completely resonates. I finding a lot about myself now, and still kind of on a week to week basis. What were the things that you found out about yourself, like the main things that you found out about yourself that you didn't know existed before?
I think only going through really difficult things in my life, and I've been through a few, like my sister being sick, then when I was sick, and just things in my life personally with business and love. And I think each time I go through adversity, I discover how strong I am, and
Mm,
this dictates how I show up in the world, the decisions I make, the kind of life I live, and how happy and healthy I am.
mm. That's really interesting. And what's even crazier that you've got a sister who had a seem like as serious, or people diseases as MS. I know quite often people talk about
Yeah,
Crohn's disease in the it's very difficult to come back from that, and both yourself and your sister have, which is
true.
incredibly, there must be something in your genes. um,
Well, we went to Croatia actually last year and met up with our relatives, and thank God we went last year. And they did say there's something in our genes. They said that you're part of the healthiest family. They've studied your bloodline of how you recover from illnesses. So that's quite funny. But I think that sometimes it's your path to recover. I think it
yeah.
was like I really wasn't supposed to. I was so sick, and statistically. But I think that, like I witness healings all the time in my private practice, with people that have come to me that have like healed themselves or worked with different practitioners and just on their journey have healed. And I'm fascinated by this concept. Why do some of us, are some of us able to step into wellness, and then what stops some of us for not being able to? And I think it's a mixture of giving the mind and body the best environment to maximize health, growth and repair. But sometimes people do all the right things and they don't. And sometimes part of the healing with, like, for example, cancer, is part of the journey is the dying that creates the transformation. And some of that, like, we don't know what that's about. Like, if I sat here pretending what that's about, I would be lying. I don't understand sometimes why some people heal and why some people don't. But what I do know is all we can do is give ourselves the best environment to maximize growth and repair. And that's by being present in the moment, receiving joy, getting rid of that inner conflict. So aligning your goals and dreams with what you believe about yourself and what can be possible, and just being as flexible as you can so that you can be more malleable and change your mind about old stuff and traumas.
Yeah. And what do you, so you've since that point, and could you talk a little bit about kind of how life today, from a health point of view, like how life has been since that point of in time?
Oh, since everything I learned walking again later translated into how I performed with business. So, and finding love in my life, it just gave me so much more courage to put myself out there. Um, and then I just went on such a deep spiritual journey too. I kind of shed old aspects of myself that just didn't matter anymore. And that led me to let go of the fashion industry and study health and well-being and kinesiology, in fact, because it inspired me so much. And then helped me to understand anatomy and physiology and Chinese medicine. It's a whole new language to learn. And I wanted to understand why I walked again and how that worked. And then I realized that my whole life I've understood energy, and this was a way to apply it. And then I opened up Bend Like Bamboo. I've lived my life really differently since that experience. And every time I go through adversity, even, what we've all experienced recently globally, I'm operating differently as a person with what I've learned, even just in the last few months. I think when we grow, we become a whole new version of ourselves, and how I think, feel, and believe and perceive elevates and becomes new. And then that changes my biochemistry. And this is my 11th year of clear MRIs since that lesion. And I take medicine as well. I take a balanced approach. I found my neurologist really wanted me on a drug because of that paralysis. And I decided that was my path. It's not everybody's, not saying it should be either. But I chose to take a balanced approach for me. And that's just my journey right now. And I balance that with, my emotional well-being. And I do lots of kinesiology and acupuncture. And I just put myself out there. But I always have. So that's not really like a thing. Like I've always put myself out there. It's more about me finding more harmony within myself. So I'm not pushing and trying. I'm more coming from a place of, now I know who I am. I'm 40 years old, more than ever before. And I've worked out what I'm good at. And I'm just like sort of culling more and more so I can just focus on what I love and just expressing that,
Yeah, no, definitely. I'd like to go back to as well is because I think a lot of people get this when they go through a chronic illness, they get told something by a doctor and they either choose to take it at face value, and they believe them. And I think there's a dangerous thing in a doctor saying something like, you'll never walk again, you need to deal with this is only manageable for you, because then you're like, well, they know what they're talking about, they had 7 years training, I don't know. You clearly didn't take that advice. You might have done it at the beginning, but then you chose to go a different way. To someone who's listening to this right now, who's maybe quite recently or at some point had that kind of advice, what's your advice to them in terms of maybe taking that advice with a pinch of salt and kind of mentally how to deal with that kind of news?
Find a team, about like an East meets West approach, if that works for you, but just find a team that around you of doctors that you do trust. It's really important to have a really great GP. I interviewed all over Australia neurologists until I found someone that was right for me, that supported my balanced approach. And obviously neurologists are trained with medications, and that's her specialty. And so I talked to her about that. And she's seen my journey. At the start, she didn't want to listen to all the other stuff I was doing, but now she is very open about how impressed. She said, yeah, you are well because of all the things that you do. And I'm just by leading by example, I'm so pleased that opened her eyes to nutrition and mindset and reducing stress and our emotions and how it impacts the body. So that was a really cool journey. I think it's really important to take responsibility for your own journey and bring into your awareness what it is that you need that's not going right for you. Find trusted practitioners that can reverse engineer the illness, because you need to backtrack how you got sick, and so that's different for everybody. And I really recommend working on it structurally, biochemically, emotionally, and spiritually. So you're going to need to take a balanced approach to do that. That's what I did. And to this day, I have a maintenance program because, you know, I rarely get symptoms, but for example, once a year I get my symptoms back, and it's usually from becoming really stressed out about something that makes me feel out of control. And it was only last week actually that I felt really sick, and it was something that just totally stressed me out. But then working through that with my team, it's amazing how once you realize what it is and you reduce the stress, the beautiful thing about having MS and feeling totally numb on the left side, and sometimes, is when all the feeling comes rushing back because you've sort of figured out why the stress is there. It's an amazing comparison of like, oh wow, like, you know, I think walking again, it really, when it's the difference between walking or not walking, you know what foods are working for you. You know what mental health programs are, you know, maximizing your health. It's a really good comparison.
You said there something which really resonates with me, taking responsibility. And I actually only realized the other day, I had a call with my doctor here, because I had to, like, a general practitioner, which in the past I've just abandoned, because you go there and they kind of look at you, roll their eyes, say there's nothing wrong with you. But I'd gone away in the 3 years since I'd last seen a doctor over here and done all of this testing, all of this stuff all on my own, and found out all of this stuff on my own. And she kind of admitted, she was like, oh wow, you've really taken control over this. I can see, you know, there's something wrong here. And it took for me having to go and do all of this work on my own, take control over it, to prove to a doctor that there was something wrong with me. And I think previously I was always waiting for a doctor to solve it for me, and I would go in, they would give me,
common.
Yeah, they would give me a pill, they would give me some antibiotics and everything, and that would be it. But I think, you know, what you're saying is taking responsibility and that's exactly what you did, right? Because I think, you know, you changed your diet as well, and you've been educated about that. Could you talk a tiny bit about that, like how you came through the process of, like, because that's got to have taken a lot of determination and resilience itself, right? With maybe stuff not working.
Yeah, I came home after walking again, and that was great, but I still had to lie down half of the day. I had multiple MS symptoms that were really debilitating after the paralysis, so there was more work to be done. So I started to study research before I studied. So I started research, and I came across Dr. Terry Walls in America. She's got MS herself, and she's a neurologist, and thankfully, because of her work, she was in a wheelchair for a couple of years, and because of her work and the science and her research, she studied, well, what foods maximize repair. And there's actually many doctors that do this, not just her. It's Professor Jelinek in Australia, Dr. Terry Walls, Robin Chutkan is an amazing resource as well. She's done the microbiome diet. So many resources on my website. But so I looked at her work, and then I started to understand what foods I needed to increase to maximize repair. And, you know, obviously reducing sugar, processed food, you know, trans fats, bad fats. But it was more about what to increase to maximize repair in the mitochondria. So green leafy vegetables, deeply colored fruits and vegetables, sulfur-rich foods that detox the cells, and iodine-rich foods. So sulfur is like cauliflower, broccoli, onion, garlic, mushrooms. Iodine, seaweed, you know, is rich in iodine. So I started to eat this way, and it was difficult at first because my stomach wasn't used to so much fiber and vegetables and water, so much water, and I was like really flushing the system. And you've got to, you know, I really recommend working alongside a naturopath nutritionist on this, because they can help heal your gut so that you can have all those lectins, which are really, you know, in a lot of our vegetables. And maybe you need to, you know, eliminate nightshades, or maybe you need to eliminate gluten. And there's tests for this so that you can make sure you've got a healed gut so you can absorb the nutrients. So once I nailed that for myself, massive trial and error approach, my symptoms started to disappear, and I could walk and run every day. And then I had my brain to study, because I decided to go back to study. So that was my nutrition journey. And Dr. Walls in America inspired me so much that I flew over there to meet her, to thank her in person. And it was like the second best day of my life, next to walking again. Yeah.
Cool. Now
Yeah.
I've actually read quite a lot about her and her story, and her story's similarly miraculous. But I'm glad you talked about that, because I just didn't want people to think that you know it was just suddenly, something miraculous happened. You didn't know how it happened, and you suddenly could walk again, and your life
No.
came back. It was through determination, hard work, and you taking
Study and
control.
research and taking control, and that's part of the healing spiritual journey, isn't it? Like learning, you have to lose something to find to come back. Like, we're
Mm,
all supposed to lose our way in life. It's actually not a failure at all. Illness or adversity, setbacks can come in forms of ending of relationships or divorce or many different changes in life. It's who we become from those changes that not only makes us, but sets us on a new path that we're ready for next. We elevate and we elevate and we elevate and we grow, and then we need different things, and we resist change so much, and we want surety so much. But just let go, be calm and present in the moment, and you will swim downstream. Life will feel more effortless. When you align that inner conflict and align it, you'll manifest faster and easier, and you'll promote growth and repair. So, and then I had to work on my mindset next, and that's studying kinesiology helped me to get into my subconscious and really identify my inner conflict. And it was huge. I didn't even know it was there, because I'm quite outgoing, confident. So I was like, what? I don't believe in myself. What do you mean? But no, I didn't. But I wasn't aware of it.
mm.
So, become aware of what your blocks are, taking responsibility, and then you can rewire your brain.
And so, I mean, I know the answer. I know the answer to this, but I guess I'd like to hear more specifics on this. And are there many things that the good things that wouldn't have happened to you, kind of, had you not got sick with MS? Like, and could you talk to us a little bit about the positive things that happened as a result?
Oh,
Because it seems to me like there's a
yeah.
bit of almost a sliding doors moment, like you've,
Yeah.
with entrepreneurship and everything like that. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Oh, yeah. Oh, God, have you got 5 out? There's so many things. Like the people that I've met, the opportunities. Like I've built a business that was in the Australian Financial Review. I had investors. I created a nutrition business. Just the people I've met and the experiences that I've had and the person I've become, and it's still going, it's still happening. And some of those things came to an end, and then I had to deal with that. And then now I'm birthing new projects. It's never ending. But I guess, after going through all of that, I know what I'm made of more. And so I have more confidence, and so you bring really cool things into your life when you believe in yourself. Believing in yourself is really important.
Mm. Yeah, and I think that's really powerful. And I think focusing on the stuff that the stuff that you're grateful for as a result of something that's really negative from the outside is actually really powerful. In terms of like moving forward now, you're is everything you do from an entrepreneurial point of view, is it looking to help people who are on a similar journey to you in terms of making their own comebacks? Do you feel like, does that give you more purpose in what you do, and is that what you're focusing on moving forward?
100%. So Ben Like Bamboo first was my private practice where I help people with illness and, MS. But now Ben Like Bamboo is a program designed to maximize resilience and health. And I love seeing people at my private practice, but in the last year, like, we've all had to pivot. I then created an online course which focuses on the 4 pillars of health, where I focus on a happy mind, a happy body, happy foods, and connection. So they're my pillars of health. And I really love helping, because then on my business journey, when I opened up Nourish, which was a ready-made meal business where we delivered meals in Melbourne a couple of years ago, and then I had Bend Like Bamboo as well at the same time, I realized that the lessons I learned walking again also applied with performance. And then when I had to be on top of my game, like I love working with CEOs, and because I was a CEO and I know what was required of me energy wise and performance wise and engagement in the workplace and productivity. So I do resilience wellness workshops, all virtually now, whereas usually they were in person. And I love helping people to believe in themselves. So it's become more of a resilience journey, which I apply to illness or any change that people are going through. I work with them. It could be a divorce, it could be the starting or an ending of a relationship, or a business, or any change that happens, changes in finances, global pandemics,
Yeah.
just
And
whatever change. Yeah.
and so there's going to be people listening to this at the moment who are at varying different stages in their journey. They could have just started developing symptoms. They don't know what's going on. Could be someone 20 years down the line who's just been in a kind of on the hamster wheel of, seeing loads of doctors and just not believing that they can improve their situation. So varying different, but I guess all in maybe a bit of a struggle at this stage. What's your advice to someone in that position? And I think it's important for people listening to this to realise that, myself and Amanda are in completely different positions, chronic health wise, but everything she's talking about today is completely applicable to what I've been through and what I'm going through. So if you're listening to this thinking, I don't have MS, but I have something else, that's not what's important. It's the mindset that we're focusing on. So what's your advice, given that loads of people are dealing with different things, but we're all in a similar kind of position mindset wise?
Yeah, I think, prior to my toe moving for the first time, for example, I was focusing on what I didn't want and what I was scared of. And so I saw more evidence of that around me, because that's how the brain works. Like whatever you're focused on, its job is to bring more resources around you of whatever that focus is. Say you've got a car model on your mind, and, you'll see them everywhere, like all of a sudden. So whatever you're focused on, you're going to notice more of that in your environment around you. And if you're focused on what you don't want and worst case scenarios, you're going to promote more growth, more survival and fight or flight reaction in your body. And so focus on what you want and focus on the positive. Research recovery stories. You're going to find research on both sides. So it's really important to decide how you're going to handle this. And if you surround yourself with positivity, what you read, what you hear, what you listen to, and who you surround yourself with is really important.
Yeah, I think that's brilliant, because if you type in Google multiple sclerosis or any sort of chronic health disease, the first things that will come up will be really negative, bad stories. Whereas if you type in multiple sclerosis recovery,
yeah,
you're going to actually
they're
be,
there. You'll
yeah,
find it. And so you've got to decide something within yourself of, we can create paradise or hell on earth, and it's all dependent on our mindset. And I've learned that so many times. And there's sometimes we have to hit rock bottom to have the courage to be forced to be lean into the black abyss. And so do something that scares you every day, because it trains you to lean into uncertainty and to try new things. So brush your teeth with a different hand, dry yourself when you get out of the shower in a different way, walk and drive on different routes. And whatever's on the bottom of your to-do list, do it first. Like, do something that scares you every morning and put yourself out there. I think that'll give you more belief in yourself, and that'll help you believe in what's possible. And what you believe is what matters. What you believe is a mirror image of your biochemistry, and also it's a mirror image of the lenses and how you'll see the world. And again, you're either creating paradise or hell.
Yeah.
Like, we're in charge. We really are.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's my advice.
Good. And look, you're clearly, and maybe this is something that's developed over time. You're clearly a very rational person, but also a very spiritual person, which is a really good combination. I've always been previously, I think we talked about it before, up until a few years ago. If you talked about, kind of focus on what you do want and not what you don't want, I'd be like, life doesn't work like that. That's not how things are. But when you actually start believing in those things, you start to feel a bit like a kid again. That like
Yeah.
actually life's
Magic.
life's actually quite nice when you like give it a chance. And I think that's why I love hearing you talk in the way you talk, because it just makes things, the impossible, seem possible. And I think it's really important to believe, because right now a lot of people will be thinking an improvement of the situation is impossible, and the first step from what you've been talking about is to believe that it is possible.
Everything's a mirror image of what we're believing. So if you don't think it's possible, you won't find the research, the right doctor, because then we always try and make it true what we're believing. So staying stuck in a rut is perfect if you believe nothing's going to work out for you. But if you change your mind and you go, you know what, things are going to work out for me and I am going to find an answer and I will be well. I had a mantra, every day in every way, I'm getting better and better. And it faded. It was up there for so long, but it just ingrained. It's a famous quote by Emile Cote. And every day in every way, I'm getting better and better. And then when I started to focus on that, all these resources popped up around me, but I apply that in my life now. So if I'm trying to manifest something in my business or in my love life or whatever, in friendship groups, whatever, whatever you're trying to create for yourself, whatever's going on in your mind is where it starts with a thought, and then you've got to be able to visualize it, and you've got to feel it, and you've got to feel what it feels like as if it's happened already. And then I journal about it, and then I do meditation and journaling every morning and night. And that's how I create this elevated energy to be bigger and greater than my setbacks and my fears. Because we need to elevate higher so you can see with a higher understanding. You know, when you're on top of a mountain, you can see all the streets and all the reasons why everything's happening. Whereas when we're on the ground floor, we're more reactive. You want to get more elevated in your state, in your mindset, in your energy. So who you surround yourself with, what you say, everything you think and say has a ripple effect. Everything that you say. So watch what you say, and like the words you use, and you'll catch. I wear a wristband. I've got many wristbands on right now, but usually I have one that says bend like bamboo, and I give it to my clients, and it's called the pineapple effect. I've got a blog about this actually, and a podcast, the pineapple effect, because it's just a word. Oh, you'll see the pineapple back here.
Yeah.
The gold pineapple is
gold one. I like that.
Yeah.
And so get me one of those.
twins. Yeah, like find a prop like that. So pineapple's just a word, right? It's like a safe word. But my twin sister and I use it because we're very different. And so we will fight, right? And so we use the word pineapple, and it reminds us, stop. We're doing it again. We don't want to be those let's just stop doing that. And so I use a wristband or a prop like that. So you could do that, elevate your energy and frequency to be elevated at the start and end of your day, but you'll forget you're human. So have a wristband or something that reminds you to catch yourself and to be more present in the moment, your most creative state. And, to bend like bamboo is to master resilience with flexibility. And you can change your mind about your old stories, and then you'll change your thoughts and what you're believing and your biochemistry, and then you're maximizing healing in that way.
Something you said then just made me realise something I've tried to change in the last couple of years. It's such a British thing to do. When someone asks you how you are, you say, "Oh, I'm not bad. I'm okay,"
yes,
and
exactly.
or you'll use it as an excuse to complain. "Oh, I'm pretty tired." Oh, yeah, and so now
not bad. Exactly.
Yeah. So now, no matter how I feel now, I always say, "I'm good. I'm good."
Me too.
And I had my old boss at work a few years ago. He was always, "I'm good. I'm good. I'm good." And I knew sometimes he wasn't good, and I think even just doing that, it's like the effect of smiling as well, isn't it? It makes you.
And the power, stands. There's like a TEDx talk.
Yeah.
I say I'm so good. I go to the next level. I'm like, I'm so grateful for this that just happened, because being grateful just makes you see more beauty around you. And again, you live in paradise or hell. You decide. Genie in a bottle. You rub the bottle and you decide. And it is that it does work. It does work, and then it translates to all the other areas of your life, but you've got to want it. I mean, we want it, but sometimes we get so stuck in our ruts, and you've got to get to the bottom of what's behind that. And it's usually a huge fear of failure, of criticism, and it's easier to hide in your den. I highly recommend kinesiology or some sort of subconscious work to bring that into your awareness of what there'll be something behind it. So don't be kind to yourself. Like, it's all good. We're here on a journey. We're human. We're doing the best we can. And so exactly. Just say, when someone says, "How are you?" So I'm great. I'm really good, actually.
Yeah, I'm going to steal that from you. Although my friends would be like, "What is going on with you? Why are you suddenly
And
this?"
I'm so grateful for.
They'll be like, "Shut up." My final question for you, and don't worry if you haven't got something to mind, but I'm always asking for people's recommendations of stuff that's kind of inspired them, whether it's a documentary, whether it's a book. I get so much out of reading books, and it's like what you said then about having recovery stories, evidence of stuff that will help me. Have you got a book that you would recommend to anyone, whether it's a mindset point of view or whether it's a documentary or anything like that, that you would recommend someone would read?
Heaps. But recently on YouTube, Finding Joe is a really good movie on YouTube, and it's all about slaying your inner dragons and why we love Wizard of Oz, Billy Elliot, all those movies all about the hero's journey and overcoming something. Watch that. It'll really help you with your overcoming adversity and how it's supposed to be hard and overcoming it. Right. Joe Dispenza on YouTube, he has amazing discussions about rewiring the brain and what's possible in changing your genes, as does Bruce Lipton. Read his book called The Biology of Belief, and you'll understand how what you believe changes your biochemistry. Another really good book on mindset is called Mindset by Carol Dweck. It's like the most famous book on mindset. And my book, hopefully in the next few months. So Bend Like Bamboo, I think I'll call it. I'm sending it to my publishers this week, and we'll edit it, and it'll be out soon, hopefully in the next few months, on resilience.
Cool. Yeah. Well, when we next get you on, you can promote that. When you next come on.
I'd love to.
I just Joe Dispenza is actually I'd only heard about him earlier on this year, and then suddenly after I heard about him once, I heard about him everywhere.
He's amazing.
And I watched a few documentaries on him, and I then was like, I have to go to one of his events, and then COVID hit. So I'm going to make it as soon as that's over, because that is all around visualization, everything.
And the science behind it, they all go through, because they're doctors, so they go through. They're doctors with their own stories, and that's why they share their knowledge. Jay Shetty's pretty cool too. I like his stuff. He's all about positivity and his journey living in India and learning, the deep philosophy. There's so much on it. Like this has been researched and discussed since ancient times. It's just more of a modern conversation now.
Cool. Well, look, thanks so much for coming on. I think it's a really good way to end the show. But just before we go, if people want to connect with you, but also I feel like you could add a lot of value to anyone who's feeling at the moment needs some help in the right direction. So could you just give a little bit of detail in terms of how people can connect with you, but if they wanted to work with you, or even maybe just have a call to discuss potentially working with you?
Definitely. Thank you. My website is amandacampbell.com.au, and that's CAMPBELL. I also have a website, benlikebamboo.com, but they both go to each other. So Amanda Campbell's just fine. So to help people globally, I've just birthed my online course. And I'd love to give your listeners 20% off the entire resilience course. You can either buy individual lessons, or you can buy the whole resilience course on mind, body, food, connection we'll do a coupon code Chronic Comeback. So if you just use that all in one word, they'll get 20% off, and I'll email this stuff to you as well.
Yeah, cool. I'll put that
you can email me, you can Facebook me, you can Instagram me, all the information's on the website.
Cool. I'll include all the information in the notes, so that's cool. Thank you so much for offering that up. I'm sure, you know, you can help many people who will come to you. So thanks so much again for coming on. What time is it there? Is it
Oh,
late
it's
on?
now 5:30 p.m.
Oh, you've got the whole evening ahead of you. At
I
least
do, I do.
your Monday's done now. Mine's just beginning. So
Yours is just starting. You're having a
yeah,
coffee, and I might
yeah,
pour a glass of wine and make some dinner. But no,
nice.
thank you so much, Phil. I love your work, and I'm so glad we met. I think you're so inspiring and amazing. Keep doing this really important work, and I'm so honoured to be on the show.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Well, I'll speak to you soon.
Yes.
Thank you.